Well, we're watching the first images then of Armel Le Cléac'h and Banque Populaire making his way towards the finish of his second Vendée Globe in second place. We've just been listening to the press conference of the winner, François Gabart. Very relaxed affair, and interesting to hear some of his comments, saying that he really only started to realise he could win it once he was well into the race. He went out just looking to make a performance. And the other interesting thing was he was saying, just talking about the stress last night with 35, 40 knots of wind, fishing boats, a lot of traffic. And so he was saying that actually the most stressful and difficult times of the race were in fact last night. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see Armel's reaction when he comes in. Obviously, second place is a fantastic result. This is his second place in consecutive Vendée Globes, performance which has never been achieved before. Obviously, Michel Desgieux in the past has won twice in 2000, 2001, and then last year with that, the last edition with that massive win that time. So Armel looking nice and relaxed then. He's done this before. He knows what faces him over the next couple of hours. The re-entry, if you want to call it that, arriving back in Les Sables. He had a great welcome in the last edition. With the first of the TV boats and the media boats now starting to join him. And the feedback also, comment from François Gabart was that it was really in the South Atlantic. That's when he started to realise he had an opportunity to win, when he broke away out to the east. And there was, I think, a couple of hundred miles of separation at one point, and that's when he started to realise that the race would no longer bore the same characteristics it had for so long, where they were only a matter of miles apart. At the very most, that was when he saw his opportunity, and he really took it then. So this is really just the outcome of that move, if you like. A little bit grayer and darker. Obviously, the cameras actually enhanced the light. And there you're starting to see the first signs of Les Sables d'Olonne, the lights blinking there on the horizon. Armel will not quite be able to see the same perspective we do from the helicopter, of course. And Francois was also saying that he was planning to go out and meet Armel, his long-time rival, all the way through the race. And the first thing he would be saying will be to thank him for the race. And really, he almost paid tribute and said he probably wouldn't have won if it hadn't been for Armel, simply because he was pushed so hard. And he'd also be thanking him for staying second. So this is the one of the key moments then when they come back in. The first boats, the first sign of human life until really have been seen. I suppose that actually, in fact, the last human life we'll have seen will have been François Gabart. They saw each other a few times in the south at different stages. It was that level of close racing. And identical sistership. Banque Populaire was, of course, the former foncier of Michel Desjoyeux. And a lot of the carries a lot of the initial development work, and Massif, the kind of next stage on from that. So we're joined with Matthew Pryor. Matt, just watching Armel with the first boats there now joined him, and he's just counting down the time to get in.
Yeah, it was very interesting listening to Francois. I wonder if Armel will have the same perspective on the key points in the race. Francois was talking about something that we discussed at length earlier, and Alan Gauthier had talked about a different part of the race, and I wonder if Armel, the part of the stretch around Cape Horn and potentially having to go up the mast. I mean, look at that beautiful sunset. I mean, this is a time to arrive, pink on the water.
Interesting. The last time it was lucky, I suppose, in that it was just after dawn and it was equally stunning. But sunset.
I suspect he'd have traded.
I think he'd have traded the sunset for an earlier finish. Yeah, mid-afternoon ahead of Francois. I'd have been quite happy. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what his perspective is on that particular little strategic move from Francois, when Francois broke, I think, out to the east and got that little bit of leverage that increased and really was the one of the key things that Francois was talking about just now.
You talked about sister ships. I mean, all the way they've been so close. We've seen minuscule differences with sail choices that they decided to take, and obviously while they're racing, but in the same conditions, they've burnt off the competition. We spoke earlier about the point where these two separated. The reason they are where they are, it started in the Indian Ocean. Going through the Amsterdam Gate, they were drag racing south, and they just dropped gradually. The rest of the boats with them just dropped off the back of the front, and what happens then is you start to see who's going to be able to live with who in the same conditions, and there was nothing to choose between.
There was nothing to choose. I mean, obviously just after that, as we was the on that same front which they rode for a week or 10 days, if you remember, and then Jean-Pierre Dick started to fall off the back of it, and there was just nothing he could do, and you really you can't lose sight of that perspective. You know, it's not a reflection of ability, it's a reflection of the simple fact that the wind is stronger and a better angle at the front of the front, and as soon as you're a matter of miles behind, then there's no way you can stay on that same train. And so you know, all credit to Jean-Pierre. He'd sailed a fantastic race up to then and caught back up a little bit since then, but it's been a race all about these two sister ships.
We were talking earlier about how Armel might be feeling, and I suppose there'll be a mixture of emotions. It's a different set to Francois. There'll be, I think, when it comes to it, when we see him reunited with his family, there'll be that same emotion of having made it back, completed the circle, just an overwhelming sense of achievement and emotion coming back through the canal. But there will inevitably be perhaps accentuated because they're so close. There isn't a separation of 2 days here.
Completely. I think the absolute key moment will be when he sees Francois, and that will be the reminder of exactly what this race has been like. You know, they've been separated for a while, and suddenly they'll be reunited, and of course it'll be an emotional moment. But this race has been about both of them, and Armel has played as big a part in every single way all the way through. The mere fact he's second is neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. His performance has been just very, very slightly, a very small percentage, one choice really. He's sailed almost as fast and almost as smart.
And it is one of those races where the great stories of the race are as important as the winners. Often we remember the great rescues. If people think back to 2008, 2009, just talking to people on in the harbour here and around Les Sables, a lot of people remember Jean Le Cléac'h being rescued and the camaraderie between Vincent Riou and Jean Le Cléac'h as they went round the horn, and then of course Vincent Riou was dismasted, and it's not to say that people don't remember Michdez winning the race, but it's a different experience than simply saying first, second, third, and
completely.
And
I think the key point there is that within the context of that incredible race, I think that you tend to lose sight of Armel's performance that time, because he really was a little bit further behind Mish. His performance, his second place, was about sheer dogged consistency, about having a reliable boat. He didn't have any big problems. He didn't get involved with the dramas that went on. And yes, you know, we called him the jackal and everything, but that was what that performance is about. This time it's about a level of excellence where he's just about matched the winner, and it's only a matter of hours behind. And so you know, all credit to Armel, and I hope that he feels that when he sees Francois and the double act is restored on the pontoon when they come back in.
And we'll have some official times for you soon, but it's going to be a record. It's going to be a record close finish as well, beating the 6 hours 33 minutes from the 2004-05 race when Jean Le Cléac'h chased Vincent Riou right to the line, and that's just another example of the great history. 8 years ago they were chasing each other to the line. 4 years ago they were, Vincent Riou was rescuing Jean Le Cléac'h, and the stories of the fight between these two great sailors will probably continue into other races. It's not something that is completed with one Vendée Globe. There is a thread that runs through the history of this race, which is what separates it from many races and you know, many other sports. It isn't just about winning. Saying that, there will be a bittersweet tinge for Armel. I think, you know, he set out to win this race. He was many people's favourite.
He was mine.
He was Andy's favourite, and I'm trying to remember. No, Vincent Riou was my favourite, but Banque Populaire have a fantastic sailing operation. A year ago, they broke the record in Banque Pop 5 for team circumnavigation of the planet in a trimaran. It's the fastest time in any kind of boat, and our own, well, Britain's Brian Thompson was on that French-dominated team. But if we look at the preparation, Andy, that Banque Pop have, that was one of the reasons I suspect that you and many others had Armel as favourite. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, the level of preparation, the comprehensive knowledge of the boat, and also just you know, ultimate reliability as tested on the Jules Verne record. You know, that's what it's all about. And of course, Armel led across the equator early in the race, and also at the Cape of Good Hope. So he was certainly, and he was in the lead regularly through this race, and he certainly staked a claim to winning. Unfortunately, just didn't quite manage it. So I think we're starting to get a little bit of an insight there. He was on deck a minute or two ago, and he looked a little bit subdued. But I think once the warmth of the welcome strikes home, and once he starts to see his shore team and his friends, his family, then we'll see a much happier, more ebullient Armel. But they're both very, very similar sailors in terms of their characteristics. Both very hands-on, intelligent skippers who know their programs. Armel is a very good people person within the team.
There are some similarities, aren't there, in these campaigns, in what we were talking about earlier of, and I noticed actually online people have been talking about how this might be replicated in England. These are great teams, and they've found great skippers to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got close. We have been close in England in the past to this level of you know, teams working with other teams, and it's been close, but you know, not recently. We're now, the economy is nowhere near strong enough that we can have several teams working together to try and strengthen the overall level.
I think that the French Minister of Sport earlier was calling François Gabart the young face of France, and what he'd done for the nation and for sailing. But she also mentioned Port Le Forêt, because the French government have put some money, and they continue to put more money into Port Le Forêt. And the difference with French sailing to other programs around the world, and Britain being one of them, is that a lot of the money and organisation and infrastructure goes into Olympic sailing there. Here it's been more about offshore sailing, hasn't it?
That's right, indeed. It might, I mean, you could conceivably compare it with New Zealand and the America's Cup. You know, this is the French America's Cup. You know, it creates this huge groundswell of good feeling through the country.
It would be great to see if you could have the similar kind of program in Britain. I'm sure you would have. I'm sure, given our Olympic success, I'm sure we'd produce a generation of incredible Ben Ainsley-like offshore sailors.
I mean, it is the big question is whether you could ever have or is the quest, you know, to have a sailor who has really been through a big, strong Olympic program, then move through into the IMOCA circuit. And some have tried in the very, very early stages, but it's a long journey, and it requires a lot of resources and a lot of talent to make that transition from Olympic sailing, or for example, Volvo offshore sailing into the solo world. And certainly Britain is not short of talent in that respect, but it's still not quite got there. I mean, we'll see. You know, Alex Thompson has been in this game for 12 or 13 years, maybe slightly longer, and he's only really coming to maturity, I think we could safely say.
Just the horizon lighting up in front of Bank Pop and Armel Le Cléac'h there. It's a slightly different scene than Francois had, and
he's got some breeze.
He's got some breeze, and it's actually something we've probably underestimated. And Francois mentioned it again and again, and when asked today, that last night was really difficult, and you know, 40 knots of breeze, and he's, you know, he was conservative for probably the first time in the race. He wasn't sailing with wasn't sailing with what he'd normally have up. He took something different out of the wardrobe. And I wonder if everyone kind of has in their mind he's going to win. It's a foregone conclusion, and in his mind, I can break something at any time. And I'm sure we'll hear the same from Armel, that actually he wanted to finish last night.
That's right. Your actors have your first night nerves, and the Vendée Globe sailors, it's last night nerves. You know, you have to be conservative, and it can feel the longest night of your career, just counting down the hours and the miles to get into the finish line through the dark, and a lot of traffic around. And I suppose that's these incidents we had on the outward stretch, when we had boats hitting fishing boats and buoys, and that's what starts to prey on your mind when you're coming back in. And of course, even remember Alex Thompson in before the start of the last race hit a fishing boat just off Les Sables. You know, the danger is lurking until they actually cross the finish line and hear the finish gun. So the spectator fleet is building up a little bit more. I think that we had some limitations before because of the weather, and there's probably the irony is that the weather's slightly stronger now. We've got a few more boats out, but
we're just hearing from race direction that it's slightly difficult to tell, but Armel is 3 miles away from the finish line here. And with this kind of breeze, he's going to cover that very quickly.
About 15-20 minutes, I would think.
He's going to be, and that's good for him, because he will make it through. He'll probably progress slightly quicker to the canal. In terms of timings for the tides, he wants to be into the canal by 7 p.m. French time, 6 p.m. GMT. He won't have to do anything fancy canting the keel, and he wouldn't want to do that really with the breeze that's up at the moment anyway. and so he will cross the line and make it the closest finish. He'll be second for the second time in 2 editions, and no one's done that. So yes, we've witnessed François Gabart becoming the youngest ever winner, but at the age of 35, to have come second for the second time is an incredible achievement, and he's written his own page in Vendée history here. He's written his own page in terms of setting marks throughout the race. He's a lead that he shared with François Gabart, exchanging every so often, every few days sometimes, and sometimes every 4 hours through the race.
That's right,
until December 31st, when François just passed him in the Pacific, and from that point François has been ahead, but never so safely ahead that he was able to take his foot off the accelerator for a moment.
It was interesting for me, certainly, that it always seemed like that Armel could come back at will. You know, even sometimes there was a matter of 12 or 15 miles behind, and they would just grind back into 2 or 3 miles behind over the course of a day, and then it would stretch and compress and stretch and compress, and sometimes it'd get past.
I think when you know that things can change so quickly, and we saw Jean-Pierre Dic's keel fall off as he was actually gaining on the 2 in front, although he was still over 300 miles behind. There is that opportunity for, if there's a small problem, to make significant gains, and when François Gabart had what we can only describe as a difficult doldrums, and Armel Le Cléac'h caught up something like 150 miles in 30 hours, the race was still very much on there. François Gabart pulled away another 20 miles as they came out, but it was very close then, under 100 miles at one point. But there just never seemed to be the opportunity.
That's right.
Upwind, it's very hard to pull back miles upwind. Every 5 miles feels like a great struggle, and it never quite looked as they took the right hook round the Azores. It never quite looked like there was going to be an opportunity or the conditions for Armel to pull it back, did there, Andy?
No, that's right. I mean, that's the problem psychologically for Armel. If there's not an opportunity, then you really just, you know your routing, you know his routing, and it's a case of just doing your very best, pushing as hard as you can, and unfortunately counting down the miles to get up to the finish.
If we look at Armel's race, I mean, we talked about François right at the beginning, showing a sort of clean pair of heels at Finistère, showing the pace. At that point, we're still expecting Armel to dominate, and in a way, that's what he did. He reasserted his authority in the North Atlantic quite quickly, as other boats were breaking and disappearing in the first 2 weeks. And as he passed the equator, didn't break the record to the equator. They had quite a slow North Atlantic, but he was really stamping his authority at that point, wasn't he?
He was indeed. I mean, the only other person who was kind of in the match, as it were, or Jean-Pierre was close, and it was Bernard Stamm. And I think under certain circumstances, then Bernard Stamm was a threat, but not really in the all-round picture. Chemini Pujola was extremely quick in reaching conditions, but lighter stuff was not so good en route. For me, there was always going to be a question over the overall reliability of Chemini Pujola, simply because it had that problem last year and hasn't done the miles, whereas Banque Populaire and Massif did both transatlantics last year, and they really then got their teething problems, their small structural problems out of the way, and their smaller mechanical problems and the real hard miles that test the rig and all the little things that can break.
I wonder if Armel will talk about whether psychologically it was difficult not being able to shake off François. I sort of feel that was must have been a turning point in the race. You know, Armel is first to Cape of Good Hope, and there's a point where, and he set the record to Good Hope, 22 hours, 22 days, 23 hours, and at that stage he's not stretching away from the competition, but you feel that he might, but he never does. And I wonder if that more than anything was the sort of the psychological blow, and it becomes harder because he's expected to. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that that weight of expectation was certainly carried from before the start. You know, as we said, many people, the kind of pundits who like to look at these things from the form book, if you like, looking at his past Vendée Globe, his past record in the Figaro, and the size and strength of his program. You know, these are all the factors that you weigh up when you evaluate a favourite or pre-race favourite, and in that respect I think that Armel really did tick all the boxes, you know, he knows that. He knew that when he was going off the start line. I don't know how many times he was asked in the days and the weeks before the start if he felt like a favourite, whether he thought he was the favourite or whether he could do it, and you know, that will weigh on his mind at different stages through the race, and particularly, as you say, once François was starting to press his authority, and Armel unfortunately just couldn't respond.
And it's interesting now we have a different perspective on the direct course he was sailing. You were talking about the Route de Rhum, his Route de Rhum race, and in 2010, and he sailed 600 miles less, I think, over the course of this whole race than François. And at different times we've seen François, we've seen him do that, and just to start off in the Indian Ocean, at least I felt, and as I said before, that it was a sign of confidence from Armel. But you were saying that it was perhaps, given his history, it's a miscalculation sometimes.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's more it's more the kind of brinksmanship, the kind of risk reward is perhaps he's prepared to push that a little more.
We're just hearing the various comms as Armel approaches the finish line here. We hope we're going to hear the horn soon. He's making good speed here.
He'll be doing 11 or 12 knots, maybe slightly more on the surfs, but he'll be across that line very quickly. Armel, of course, fantastic Figaro sailor in his own right, and
I think that's why I was, you know, he had a chance right up until the end, because he does close finishes.
Yeah.
He won the Figaro, what, by 13 seconds.
Yeah.
He knows how to win these nip and tuck races. So although there was pressure, that at some point you felt like
you would certainly have been backing him if he'd been coming into the final day with you know, 20 or 30 miles or something behind, but
and I think that's something we can't emphasize enough, actually, the difference. You know, it's another reason why Alex Thompson has done fantastically well. He's never raced in the Figaro, and to even be in the you know, as close as he has been to these guys who are training together, you know,
absolutely,
boat against boat, and then seeing it in very competitive conditions in the Figaro, exactly how they measure up. I think you don't survive unless you're this good.
It's going to be an interesting question to pose to Alex at some point, but I mean, their preparation is so very different. You know, they're from the Figaro background. Alex has done the ocean miles in the last year or 15, 16 months, you know, that really explain to me why he's done so well in this race. You know, it's he's done the hard miles, you know, in the same way these guys have, although they've done more in the short inshore training. We're nearly at the line, I would imagine.
100 meters, I think. Race direction is telling us 100 meters. We can almost count that down. I think that's the cardinal mark there, isn't it?
Just out to the right, yeah. There we go.
So we've got a dramatic nighttime finish here. And here's the line.
There we go. It's just coming through the line in the next 15 seconds. There we go then. Armel Le Cléac'h takes second place in the 2012-2013 Vendée Globe, the 7th edition of the race. Armel's second place in a row. And a fantastic achievement for this very popular sailor.
We'll wait for the official times, but I think we can call that as the second, the closest finish there's ever been in Vendée history. And there'll be an enormous sense of relief. Here is shore crew coming on board. And they'll take over from him as they did from François, and let him finally take his foot off the pedal. I'm sure he's as exhausted.
Yeah.
And emotional scenes there. He's back, he's completed the circle, he's back home, he's safe, he's second. It's an incredible achievement. It's an incredible achievement finishing, but to finish second in both races is it hasn't been done before.
Hasn't been done, and this is, I'm sure this is the one that he'll take most satisfaction from by a long way. He knows he's been in the match all the way round, and just fell short at the very end. And he knows the calibre of skipper who've had to drop out, and the calibre of skipper who are behind him still, and a long way behind.
So official finishing time of 5:35 and 52 seconds UTC, so that's GMT, and a race time of 78 days, 5 hours, 33 minutes and 52 seconds. So we are looking at a record there. I'll get my calculator out in a second, and work out what the difference is. But it's under the 6 hours 33 minutes from the 2004-05 race, when in similar situation Jean Le Cléac'h was chasing down Vincent Riou, but couldn't make up the ground. And of course that's the race where Mike Golding was very much, in a way, that was a 3-horse race. And Mike Golding broke a couple of halyards in the Atlantic, unfortunately, and then lost his keel with 50 miles to go, but managed to get back, and the first person ever to get back in the Vendée Globe without a keel, and
that's right,
and finished third. So we would have had, I think, maybe not a 3-horse race, but I think Jean-Pierre Dick, if he hadn't lost his keel, would have made up. He was making up ground, and he would have certainly been close.
Indeed. I mean, I think to be fair, not many other skippers out there have sailed more miles than Jean-Pierre Dick and had tried harder, and his programme really merits a podium position for me. But such is the cruelty of the Vendée Globe. We've talked about it many times, and it's another repetition of that. Remember Marc Guillemot in the last race lost his keel at the Azores, and it seems like in a perverse way that the challenge becomes greater and greater each edition to try and finish from a distance further out without a keel. And really it would be a great story if Jean-Pierre does go on.
They're telling the boats to keep away here, the shore crew. So there's obviously people are wanting to get close, get pictures. It's darker, so you've probably got more of a scrum around Armel. They just want to navigate safely now. Last thing you want is a little bump, and actually, not that it would stop, not that they'd have to go back for repairs, but it reminds us of the start when one of Bertrand de Brock's own support crew made a significant impact on the boat, enough for him to have to come straight back just before the race even started.
That's right. It's certainly a little bit embarrassing to finish like that, but no problem just now. I think, as you said, I think they'll try and get the sails down, get into the canal fairly smartly.
He's got about 20 minutes, so he's fine. They'll get in before the tides are against them, and there will be an extraordinary welcome for Armel as well, won't there?
Indeed. His steak and chips are cooking right now.
I think Francois was having salmon to start, and then I saw a hamburger.
A very lightly cooked hamburger.
A very lightly cooked hamburger. It's probably just been breathed upon.
That's right. But he was on very good form, wasn't he, Francois? Very relaxed and
3 hours,
very forthcoming.
3 hours, 17 minutes and 12 seconds is the difference between the two that we have at the moment. So that's
about half.
That's about half the time in 2004-05, and gives some idea to how close it's been in the end. Yes, Francois slowed down a little bit so that he could navigate through the canal. Earlier he had to wait till about 2 to do that, so he just went straight through. He wouldn't have done that if it had been closer again, but you know, even the different conditions they've had at the finish, I mean, you can imagine a situation where if they'd been closer, Armel
what a beautiful
pushing
side,
right
though.
to the end. The flares will be more dramatic.
They will. They might work. He might have 2 at a time.
So he's covered a distance of. Here we go. Here's this. So the official time: 78 days, 5 hours, 33 minutes, and 52 seconds. that he's covered a distance, an actual distance of 28,000 miles, 56.55 miles at an average speed of 14.9 knots. So I think Francois was 15.3 knots, if I remember correctly. So
yeah,
very little to choose between them. As you can see, Francois sailed about 600 miles extra, but it's so close. It makes analysis slightly difficult in terms of going, the race was won and lost here and there, because in the end it's such a fine margin. And okay, 3 hours might seem like a lot if you've just tuned in today, but after 78 days, it's nothing. It's nothing,
is it? And I think, am I right in saying that at one stage Francois had sailed quite a lot more miles than 600?
It was closer to 1,000,
wasn't it? Yeah. So
I think some of that may have been in the South Atlantic, and then a little bit over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We were talking about the teams earlier, and the one similarity, I think, in a way, is that they've been not dropped into these teams, but there's a selection process. The team.
That's right.
There's a very sophisticated team, and then they are looking for a sailor. In a way, that's a different situation than you have, for instance, with if you look at Alex Thompson or Mike Golding's campaign, where it's very much based around their team going out and getting sponsorship. This is a big campaign that they've cherry-picked the best skippers out there, and they've gone out and proved it. But definitely François Gabart and Armel Le Cléac'h have been two of the best skippers out there, and they've been slotted into boats. François was just talking about really learning about the boat on this race, and that would be something that would almost be said to count against people in the past. But with him, the preparation was so good, and he's such a good sailor that he's been able to do it during this race, and he's been out on the water. And I think you were talking about Alex preparing. He's said very much that this last year has been his best year of sailing, probably since he started, and it's shown on the water. You do have to get out there. Both the Bank Pop and Massif teams have said to me, as well as Verbach Preprek, the Jean-Pierre Dick team, that you can train for the Vendée Globe. I was just talking now about how you can go out in conditions. You can't prepare for the Southern Ocean exactly, because you can't go down to 3 months and prepare in the Southern Ocean. No, but you can find conditions like it, and you can make sure you're out on the water. That's
right. It's about going out and proving the reliability of the boat and the skipper and the components of both, if you like. But it's also about having that confidence that you know when you've got a manoeuvre to make in 40, 45 knots that you can do it smoothly and cleanly, and that's so vital. And it's just in terms of the general confidence in your boat and your program. Just going back to what you were saying about Bank Popular bought the old Foncia, and at that stage there was the rumour mill starts to go into overdrive. Who is going to be the skipper for Bank Popular? And lo and behold, not many people were surprised when Armel took up that role, and he's done a great job. He's a fantastic ambassador for the brand.
He's a fantastic ambassador for sailing and for the French system and for Port Le Forêt. He has established himself as one of the greats of French sailing, I think. He will have wanted to win it, and I suspect he'll be back. He will want to win this race.
He will. I mean, the big question now, it would be lovely to see them all back in the Figaro, but I don't know whether that would happen. But a rematch in the Figaro with Miche and Gabart and Armel, it'd be nice to see that at some stage.
So dramatic scenes here. The nighttime finish always feels quite special, and brings back memories from previous races. People coming back under cover of darkness and the flares. I mean, in a way, it's difficult for me to escape from the images of Ellen and lit up in the dark with the flares and the kind of almost spiriting in it at night.
Completely. I mean, you come into the channel and the faces are not as visible as obviously as they are in daylight, but the noise and the overwhelming warmth of the emotion is immediately palpable as soon as you get into the canal. And Armel, as we said, knows what that feels like, and he'll just be starting to anticipate that now. A little bit rock and roll, a little bit bumpy, just as he's setting up now. But they're certainly not going to spend too much extra time out there.
No, they're just counting down the minutes here. I mean, it's not a. They're not in a rush, but, they won't be waiting around out there.
They won't. And what was interesting, you know, some of our listeners will have heard François Gabart talking about nothing prepares you for that. You know, he said that he came in 4 years ago. He came in a rib under the bow of Foncia. On the one hand, really, he felt as part of it as you possibly could, as integrated into the whole thing. And he said, and yet you go in, he went in today and he was absolutely blown away by it.
I think it will be different for Armel as well. I mean, as you said, his second place in the last race was a very different second place. Roland Jourdain was in second place and lost his keel. A very similar place to Jean-Pierre Dick has lost his keel this. And actually Armel was never going to catch Michel Desrieux. Was just, you know, he finished 5 days and 6 hours behind him.
That's right.
We just did not have this kind of finish in. The last race was a destruction derby. It was very difficult to tell whether it was Michel brilliance or whether what the technology started speaking franglais again.
Yeah.
What the technology jump was in the last race, because really it was just Michel finishing so quickly. We lost 19 out of the 30 boats. We lost 7 in the first 2 weeks of this race,
and
but after that
there was one.
And then there was one, yeah. And so really we've seen the big jump forward in this race. And for Armel, this is a second place which he would dearly have loved to turn into a first place. And Francois was very honest there. He said, "I'll thank you. I'll thank him for the race." Francois is out in the water there, and they'll exchange words. And Francois will thank him for the race. But he couldn't. You know, he was being honest when he said, "I'll thank him for staying behind me," because they're competitors. This isn't just an adventure.
It does absolutely bring it home to you, though. Again, just to reiterate what Francois was saying, with, you know, 4 years ago he was there with Mich as the prodigy, as you know, integrated into the team. But in his wildest dreams, he wouldn't have thought he'd be coming back 4 years later as the winner, with Armel, who had finished second 5 days later behind him.
Well, it was this. This is why Armel was the favourite. He had the pedigree. It was, you know, almost Francois was in this race and obviously had a great team and they believed in him. But even his own team won't have exactly known how he was going to react. He'd never been at sea for more than 16 days. Armel had been around the world in 89 days in the last race. He absolutely knew how to get a boat home. He was the man. Jean-Pierre Dick too. But you know, a lot of the smart money was on Armel, and he's only fallen short because he's possibly come up against one of the legends of French sailing in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting his gloves on just in case his delicate skin gets burned, but
that's preparation. They've even got gloves for flares at the finish.
That's right.
It's attention to detail.
I think they're a little bit more used to it than Massif, with respect. They've had a few things to celebrate over the years, as you say, not least last year.
And it was interesting that 2 weeks ago they announced the programme for Armel for the at least next 2 years. They bought Group Armour 3 as a trimaran and said that they're going to race it in. I think they're going to race it in the next Route de Rhum in 2014. Is that right? With Armel as skipper. So this again shows a sort of a slight difference of approach. François Gabart has the same thing. We may see him in trimarans, but he's been employed up till 2014. I suppose in a way that's not so new, because Alain Gauthier corrected me and said, well, actually, when I finished in '92, I still had 3 years left on my contract. So things haven't changed completely, but Armel already knows what the next part of his program is. They announced that on Twitter, actually, as Armel was trying to chase down Francois, which is sort of interesting timing, but in some ways probably takes some of the pressure off.
I mean, it's interesting that these skippers who move between the big multis and back into the Imocas. That was one of the things that Mish said after his victory last time, that his experience in the multis was so critical to learning the limits that you can push to. You can push to a much finer line in the multi-hulls, and that's really, he paid tribute to that when he won the last race.
And I remember I was standing on one of the banks of these canals at the start, and Armel was really lifting his hands to the crowd and got an enormous roar as he left. It was deafening. I mean, this will be even louder, I suspect, but he really enjoyed the start. I think, having done one before, he knew what it meant, and he really wanted to enjoy it. And I'm sure he'll be doing the same now.
He's just drinking it in. You wouldn't say this is what makes it worthwhile, but certainly, these minutes are the minutes that you will remember forever.
And he has a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely.
This race will be remembered for Francois' victory, yes, and becoming the youngest, but it will be remembered for the incredibly close-fought battle between François Gabart and Armel Le Cléac'h, neck and neck all the way. People will write about it for years to come when they're looking back at the race. They will marvel and perhaps not actually believe sometimes. I'll have to go back and check. I know that I'll be going back to check all the points in the race where they could virtually see each other. South of Australia, François Gabart was sending back pictures saying, I can see him. There'll be a little sail in the distance. There were a matter of miles. There was ocean match racing for a long period of this race, and it will be one of the great stories of not just this race, but of the 7 editions of the Vendée Globe so far.
Indeed, and Armel was such a big part of that. This race wouldn't, as Gabart said, he wouldn't have won if Armel hadn't been pushing him and hadn't been there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think it would have been a closer race with Jean-Pierre? I mean, it would have been a different shaped race, wouldn't it, with attacks at different times if you hadn't had those two boats just pushing each other away from the rest of the fleet the whole time?
I think without a doubt, I think that with all due respect to Jean-Pierre, I don't think he was ever, at that level. I think he was 97, 98%, but there was just 2 or 3, and I think that, you speak to the aficionados at Port La Forêt, and they would be the 2 that you would probably pick. Along with, as you said, Vincent Rieu, but for me, the Vincent Rieu's program,
I think we caught a glimpse of his children there, Edgar and Louise. Edgar's 2 and Louise is 5. I'm not 100% certain because it's very dark, but and his wife too. And that's
beautiful, just fantastic.
He's home, and for them that's the most important thing. They'll be very proud of him.
What a noise, what a welcome. You said, I think you can't see the faces as clearly as you can in daylight, but the darkness, I'm sure, magnifies the noise and strengthens the warmth of the welcome. And Armel is absolutely loving it. Very, very well deserved. This cavalcade comes down the canal. Little right turn ahead as they come into the marina. Not hanging about really, are they? Coming in at reasonable speed.
He wants that steak, I think.
Exactly. Medium rare.
Nice to see the family, nice to have a steak.
Oh, completely, yeah.
It was, Francois sounded actually like he hadn't been too deprived of food. He said he took 90 days of food with him, so obviously that was one of the considerations, not having to put pressure on yourself, and also a lot of confidence.
No, completely. If you feel there's too much food, you just eat it. But yeah, I mean, that was the point he was making, was he didn't want to be ever feeling that he was short of energy or short of food, and so he had food for an extra week. And that's, you know, that's all part of the preparation.
So Armel Le Cléac'h finishing in second for the second consecutive Vendée Globe for him. 3 hours, 17 minutes and 12 seconds behind François Gabart. The closest finish in the history of the Vendée Globe. Easily eclipsing the 6 hours, 33 minutes from the 2004 05 race, which itself seemed like an incredibly close race. There'll be the same crush on the pontoon.
Nice challenge for our French media counterparts to make their deadlines, eh? They've all been there. And it's a nice challenge for them, having such a fantastic story, and both protagonists finishing so close together. They can all be both included in the overall picture. And for me, really of equal merit, really.
I have a feeling we'll have more stories of breakages from Armel than we did Francois. Francois talked about losing a sail, I think, around somewhere in the South Atlantic around Cape Horn. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did wonder how fast he could have gone if he had that sail, and obviously he was a day faster. We heard from the designers, the VPLP team earlier, and they were saying he was a day faster than they'd predicted, so that's quite extraordinary. And
he certainly didn't magnify he was asked several times in the press conference about the problems we had, and I think he's only mentioned the sail once, so I wonder to what extent it was a key issue for him, but we will find out in due course, I'm quite sure. But he certainly wasn't very forthcoming. He had this problem initially with the engine 5 or 6 days in, I think, when he was saying that they had a water leak or something into the fuel mix, and he ended up with mayonnaise, and he spent some time talking about how open he wanted to be about his problems, and he decided initially that he would be as open as possible, and then once he was going, I think, is that right, he decided that perhaps he would just be a little bit more tight-lipped and play the kind of conventional game, if you like.
And I think that would have been very much a team strategy as well. That's Armel's wife and children there. This is the best fireworks night of their young lives, I'd have.
Indeed, when Daddy's home.
And the skippers have different strategies actually at the start. It's quite tough breaking from the family for even 3 months, even though this isn't like the 60s and disappearing for nearly a year. It's still an emotional wrench, and sometimes some of the skippers actually don't have their wives and families at the start, and it could just be a way of sealing themselves off. Francois was talking about the fact that he only rarely spoke to any members of his family during the race, and it was more with single points of contact with members of the team.
That's right, certainly they'll speak to the team members more than family. And I think François said he spoke to his wife once a week.
Bah, content d'être arrivé, surtout d'avoir pu rentrer en chenal ce soir. J'avais un peu peur de rester bloqué. Donc là, c'est déjà la première récompense de pouvoir fêter ça avec le public et présent ici, quoi.
Comment ça s'est passé les dernières heures de course?
Bah, difficile un peu dans le golfe de Gascogne. La météo était un peu dure hier soir au Cap Finistère et beaucoup de cargo. Et puis après, ça s'est un peu calmé ce matin et on a profité pour, bah voilà, pour faire un peu le tour du bateau. Profiter ces dernières heures tout seul et puis avant d'arriver, voilà.
Donc, l'état d'esprit, vous étiez à la poursuite de François dans le golfe de Gascogne.
Oh, bah, je savais que c'était joué. Après, il pouvait arriver à quelque chose de compliqué pour lui, mais je ne souhaitais pas du tout. Donc voilà, tant mieux, ça s'est fini comme ça. Et voilà, c'est mérité, la course est belle et on est arrivés tous les deux, donc c'est parfait.
3h17 d'écart.
Just saying that they arrived more or less together and.
Oh bah, pour moi, ça s'est joué au long du Brésil. Quand on a eu une petite dépression orageuse, voilà, j'ai perdu quelques milles qui ont été difficiles à ramener après.
Just saying the little low pressure system off Brazil when Gabart broke out to the east. That was the key stage for him as well. Lost a few miles then.
Voilà. Non, ça c'est.
That was the
Chris, c'est des fumigènes ça.
key part of the game.
C'était votre deuxième participation, Armel.
Ouais.
Quelle différence avec la première?
Ah bah, le rythme a été beaucoup plus soutenu.
Just the intensity of the
J'étais
rhythm
venu pour ça.
Going to be his memory of the race.
Voilà, pour être plus en avant par rapport à il y a 4 ans, où, notamment dans les nord du Sud, où j'avais été un cran en dessous. Là, cette année, on a imposé le rythme avec François.
Just talking about the difference in the
voilà,
rhythm between 4 years
devant,
ago.
on a quasiment été aux avant-postes de toute la course, donc c'était ça que j'étais venu chercher et qui était vraiment différent par rapport à il y a 4 ans. 10 jours de moins quand même.
Vous reconnaissiez avant le départ, Armel, notre objectif?
Ça va? Pardon.
So do we know, Alec, but Armel's battle music is coming up the pontoon, do we?
We haven't got that yet, but he's going to be a rock star.
He's going to be a rock star. Certainly no shortage of flares on board Bank Popular this evening, as indeed there might be, there might not be.
It's an all-day carnival at Les Sables de Blanc, finishing by night. Armel Le Cléac'h in second place for the second consecutive Vendée Globe. This one by just over 3 hours. And that mixture of sport and almost carnival to the finish is perhaps accentuated at night.
There's somebody very happy to see Daddy home.
Hugging his 2 children there, Edgar, his son, his 2-year-old son, and Louise, his 5-year-old daughter.
It's very difficult on these this period coming into the canal when everybody wants a piece of you, everybody wants to share the moments. And it's nice to see Armel getting his priority with his family. Really enjoying that moment. And if he had any kind of disappointment in coming second, I'm absolutely sure he doesn't feel like it now. It's a very proud dad. And I suppose in a lot of ways it's as much what they think of him as what anyone else does.
Well, I think the level of understanding of this race in France and in many parts around the world it is that it's not just about winning. There is such an emphasis on the spirit of the competition and the stories within the race and the achievement of getting back. So few people have made it back round.
No, for sure, and I think that, you know, everybody appreciates that they may be incredibly hard and tough guys, but most of them are family people with kids, and that makes it all the harder.
That's not to say he wouldn't have wanted to win, of course.
No, of course
He's
not.
a fierce competitor.
Of course not. But
he wouldn't have stayed this close to Francois if he hadn't been, because we've seen how fast Francois has been all the way around the world. I think that there'll be some bittersweet in the memory, but I think you're right. At the moment, when you're reunited with your family after 78 days at sea, it's far too glib to talk about wishing you'd come first. He'd just be happy to see them. I wonder if he'll reflect later, and the team will reflect on what more they could have done, and whether there is anything more they could have done if they were unlucky with a couple of breakages that we're not clear about. Maybe he just had slightly less luck than Francois.
I think the one thing would be that blast reacher. I think to have that in his armoury, then he might have felt a little bit more even in these particular conditions. But that's a choice you make. And that sail was a development of what Mich had in the previous race. And, you know, that comes with the Mer Agité package, if you like. There's the massive team giving their applause, their warm welcome to Armel.
And the skippers try to be back for all the arrivals they physically can be. This one's obviously not so difficult for Massif, because they only finished 3 hours ago. And Francois has literally just finished his press conference as Armel arrives. So he had a pretty speedy turnaround to get out on the water.
Yeah.
He'll have wolfed down his hamburger.
It's a big crowd on the dock there. So we have touchdown. Dock lines go on, and Armel Le Cléac'h meets the media. He'll get his champagne first. Done this before. There we go. Evening shower for the media and his shore team. Might drink a little bit, Armel, perhaps. There we go.
Merci, merci.
Overwhelmed then by the level of interest in these.
Ah, il est pas mauvais le petit jeune, hein. Il est pas mauvais, c'est sûr.
It's not bad.
Non, bah, super content d'arriver, d'avoir pu rentrer
Very
en
happy
chaînage
to
ce soir.
arrive.
J'avais un peu stressé cet après-midi de pouvoir rentrer. C'était un peu juste avec la marée. Finalement, j'ai eu le vent suffisant pour pouvoir finir la course et arriver à temps. Donc je suis très content parce que je savais que le public était très nombreux et
Very
présent à
happy to
m'attendre.
see all
Donc,
the
je
public
voulais pas
out
les
in such
rater.
big numbers.
Et puis bah voilà, deuxième c'est pas si mal que ça.
Yeah, and second is not bad at all.
Voilà, et puis en tout cas je suis content de la copie que j'ai rendue sur l'eau, on va dire à 99%, et ça s'est joué à pas grand chose, mais bon voilà, c'était François le meilleur. Je suis très heureux d'avoir fini deuxième derrière lui, il a fait une super course, et puis
Very happy to be
voilà, en
second
tout cas,
after such a great
70
course.
jours de mer, j'aurais pas cru ça au départ, et ça fait presque 11 jours de moins qu'il y a 4 ans, donc voilà, on a monté le niveau de jeu vraiment, et je suis très heureux. Ça a été, ouais, c'était super intense, en tout cas sur l'eau, notamment dans les mers du Sud, parce que on s'est imposé un rythme finalement assez soutenu. Et je pense que le fait qu'on soit tous les deux comme ça, on a mené un train assez rapide qu'on n'aurait peut-être pas pu faire si on était tout seul.
Just talking
Voilà,
about the
donc c'était
intensity of the
vraiment
rhythm
super,
set in
on a fait des
the
belles moyennes,
Southern Ocean.
on a eu l'occasion de creuser sur les adversaires à un moment et on a fait le trou. Et après, voilà, c'est une belle bagarre sur l'Atlantique, la remontée, malheureusement.
Good battle in
J'ai
the
raté le
Atlantic
coche
on the
à un
way
moment,
back up.
Et puis l'écart, après, j'ai jamais pu revenir. Donc bon, voilà, c'était comme je disais, comme un match de tennis, hein, au 5e set, il a fait le break.
Yeah, he's
et
talking
puis,
about
voilà, il a
the
gagné,
saying it's a little
il a
bit
gagné
bit like
6-4,
tennis
au
and
5e
getting
set.
into the fifth set, and then the break comes.
Comment?
François disait que la course n'aurait jamais été aussi belle sans toi. On se doute que c'est réciproque.
Ouais, bah c'est sûr, hein, il y a eu une super bagarre depuis le départ, hein, parce qu'on était ensemble au Cap Finistère, et puis derrière on s'est retrouvés.
Great battle all the way round, starting off together at Cape
C'est sûr
Finisterre.
que ça a monté le niveau, c'était vraiment intense
Raised the
tous les
level.
deux. Derrière aussi, on savait que de temps en temps il pouvait revenir, notamment Jean-Pierre qui à un moment n'était pas si loin que ça. Malheureusement, il a eu pas mal de pépins techniques.
And Jean-Pierre at the battle, other than his technical problem in the end.
On a fait quand on va regarder derrière la copie, parce que c'est vrai que maintenant on était vraiment à fond sur la course, on regardait plutôt devant ce qui se passait, on n'a pas trop regardé ce qui se passait derrière et ce qu'on a fait, mais quand on va regarder ça tranquillement dans le canapé dans quelques jours, on se dira que ouais, c'était vraiment un beau parcours.
Qu'est-ce qu'il a manqué?
Bah,
What did you miss?
si je savais. Non, mais pas grand chose, je pense, pour moi pas grand chose. J'ai essayé d'analyser un peu aujourd'hui, profiter de cette dernière journée. Voilà, pour moi la course ça s'est jouée au large du Brésil. J'ai tenté un petit coup à un moment pour pouvoir revenir sur lui.
Just saying that the course played out off Brazil then in that low pressure. He said that just a
profiter
little bit
d'une
earlier.
dépression orageuse pour faire revenir au contact, et puis malheureusement ça s'est
Just lost
inversé
lost
contre moi.
contact in that little low
Voilà,
pressure system.
c'est le jeu de la météo, c'est le jeu de la course au large. Et
It's a
j'ai
game
perdu
of
beaucoup sur ce coup-là,
playing
et
the
derrière,
weather.
bah voilà,
That's offshore racing.
impossible de revenir parce que bah voilà, il a su bien contrôler, la météo était pas trop compliquée, notamment dans l'anticyclone des Açores. On a traversé l'anticyclone assez facilement. Donc bah voilà, c'était après pour lui.
And after that, it's not
avait,
been
entre
too
guillemets,
complicated
qu'à
really.
contrôler,
No
donc c'était
options,
pas
no
facile.
opportunities for him
Et
to
je
get
pense qu'il a un
back.
peu stressé dans le poteau noir notamment, mais bon voilà, je savais que ça allait être dur de revenir sur lui parce
A
que
little bit of a comeback
voilà,
in
c'est un
the
très bon marin,
doldrums.
il allait vite tout le temps et il n'a pas fait beaucoup d'erreurs.
He's been quick the whole time.
Et donc bah, moi quand j'en ai fait une, il l'a saisi voilà, à 100%.
François nous disait que finalement il avait eu plein de soucis techniques, peut-être autant que de jours en mer. Quels ont été les tirs?
Ouais, bah, c'est sûr qu'on a tous nos petits pépins techniques qu'on raconte pas forcément à la vacation ou à vous les journalistes, parce qu'on garde ça pour nous et on veut pas que l'adversaire sache qu'on est un petit peu blessé. Donc moi j'ai eu quelques petits problèmes, c'est sûr.
There's one or
Je
two
suis
little
monté
problems, a little bit
dans
injured.
le Pacifique 2 fois pour aller débloquer un Jenneker. J'ai une voile
So
qui était restée
broken the
bloquée aussi en
Jenneker.
montant, sur le génois, donc c'était un petit peu pénalisant en vitesse.
And
J'ai mes girouettes
having
qui m'ont
problems with the
relâché sur la fin de course.
Genoa.
Voilà, j'ai eu un hydrogénérateur qui s'est décroché la 3e nuit. Enfin voilà, il y a eu
Hydro generator
petites
broken
choses.
on
C'est vrai
the
qu'il y a des bouts
on
à
the third
bout,
night.
bah, on passe du temps finalement à bricoler, à surveiller, à réparer. Mais ça fait partie du Vendée Globe. Hein. On sait très bien que pour aller jusqu'au bout, il faut aussi entretenir le bateau, être super vigilant sur le matériel. Et bah, pour ça, je pense que je remercie énormément mon équipe parce qu'ils ont fait un super boulot.
What's he saying?
Le bateau était super bien préparé au départ. On a eu le temps de travailler tout ça pendant 1 an et demi avec le team populaire. Et c'était un plaisir de naviguer sur ce bateau bien préparé. Même s'il y a eu quelques petits problèmes, je savais qu'à terre, il y avait des bonnes solutions pour réparer.
You always need to find the good solutions to repair.
Bah, je vais effectivement profiter d'un bon repas. Je crois que j'ai demandé un steak frites.
Okay, it's dinner.
Profiter de rencontrer mes enfants,
Homemade
ma femme
chips.
et tous les gens qui m'ont suivi, la famille,
And
les
chocolate
amis.
cake.
Voilà, tous les gens de Banque Populaire, c'était super. Le soutien pendant ces 78 jours, je savais que j'étais vraiment poussé à fond. Et voilà, de faire cette belle arrivée avec tout le monde.
The support of Banque Populaire was a real good motivation for him.
Voilà, tout ça c'est comme une victoire finalement et je suis très heureux.
It's like a win.
It's like a win. It's not the first place, but
It feels like a win.
Merci.
you know that he made his second Vendée Globe 11 days and 4 hours less than the first one.
Yeah. There's optimist there, is it?
Ah yes, it's his first optimist. That's right. He starts sailing, solo sailing on in this optimist. It's a nice present.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'm ready.
Translate this into French, Camille.
Il est prêt.
C'est que la caméra cachée en fait.
Armel, congratulations to second place in Vendée. Absolutely outstanding. But what a battle it was, the closest ever.
Yes, I'm very happy for my second place, but François he was the best during this race. He wins the race, I think, in a good strategy in the end of the Atlantic. But I am happy with my race during 78 days. It was very intensive with François. We have match racing in the Pacific, in the Ocean Indian. So I'm very happy to be here and to finish second. So voilà.
That's the most stressful part of the race for him then.
3.5 hours separated you in the end, and hundreds of thousands of people are here to celebrate that with you. But just a word perhaps about François.
Yes, François for me, he was a good player for this Vendée Globe. He has made no mistake, just some light little, and I think he was the best during these 78 days. 3 hours at the end is very small, but it's like a tennis match when you finish in the 5 set. You have a winner and not a winner, so I'm finished second. So it's a game, it's a sport, and I'm happy.
It was great sport, great to watch. Thank you and congratulations.
That's Shirley Robertson, the double Olympic gold medalist, working for CNN, asking the questions in English to Armel. And again, him drawing the comparisons with tennis, saying it's like going to five sets and losing in tie break.
Merci, merci.
Merci à toi. Merci de nous avoir fait rêver.
Denis Arnaud, the race director, passing on his congratulations.
Plaisir de vous revoir. Plaisir de vous revoir. Ah, Bruno?
So Camille, tell me what you think about Armel's race then.
Plaisir de revenir.
It was a fantastic one. He could have won this race.
He could have won.
Actually.
It was very close in the end.
And François said at the press conference, François said thank you to Armel because it
Completely.
was thanks to Armel that it was so intense.
So close.
avec l'équipe et ensuite on va ensemble, toute l'équipe, tu sais, dire un mot à la foule.
Bien sûr.
So they're going to take a photo with all his team.
J'ai vu. Ah bah, comme d'habitude, hein.
Exactement comme François.
Ah ouais, c'était super. Super. Avec la lumière et tout, c'était bien. Ça va, Chantal?
Ouais.
Super.
Très heureuse
Ah, moi
de
aussi,
te
de
retrouver.
voir, ouais, génial.
So he certainly seems happy enough. There's no air of disappointment there for second place at all.
Moi, tu vas à la neige, toi? Ah, t'as séché?
His nephew.
His nephew. The extended family then.
Il fait que vomir.
Qu'est-ce qu'il a vomi?
Started out as a shore team for his brother, didn't he? For Gail, didn't he? In the Figaro in the very beginning. That's where he got his first break in the Figaro. And then he, like Gabart, won the early Credit Agricole Rookies Challenge, I think. That gave him a first season, a first toehold in the Figaro.
Ça va, ça va, ça va.
Very, very fast learner in the Figaro at the time.
Ça va retomber tout à l'heure, mais bon. Bonjour, ça va bien? Ouais.
So, Camille, do you think we'll see Armel back in the Figaro at some stage, perhaps?
I think he's doing the next one, Andy.
And François, perhaps?
And maybe François, I don't know what is the program for François this year, but why not?
It would be great to see, wouldn't it? That would.
But François never won the Figaro, so maybe...
No, twice second, isn't he? And Armel has won it twice. We've not seen François yet. I can't imagine he's very far away. I'm sure he'll appear and be interesting to see what they have to say to each other. As we said at the press conference earlier on, he was certainly paying François was paying a very, very warm tribute to him, and said he was looking forward to seeing him and thanking him for the level that they sailed at, pushing each other all the way around the course.
Allez, c'est la corvée là.
Armel is in a better shape than last time. You remember, he
Completely.
lost 8 kilos.
That's right. He was. I mean, I was saying with Matthew earlier on, it's a very, very different race to last time. Last time he was quite a long way behind, and his race was about tenacity and holding on and just keeping the boat in one piece. And this time he's been completely and utterly in the match all the way around, and he will be more satisfied with this race. Certainly looks to be in pretty good shape, does Armel, as well as François. There's no obvious signs of fatigue or scrubbed up quite well.
Elle a fait des insomnies, elle a pas rêvé.
On s'envoie des petits mails et tout, c'était sympa. Bon. Merci, merci.
Here we go, back with his daughter.
Oh là là, papa est rentré, hein. Ça va être dur, hein.
Daddy's back. Papa rentré.
Ah, ça va, Fred? Ça. Regarde.
As we said earlier, Armel started out on a fairly conventional passage through dinghies. He was in that's his first Optimist, we believe, but he was in regional 420 squad and was a fairly moderately good sailor. not outstanding, and reached the top of the regional squad. Then he went to college. His father insisted he have some kind of college education. And I think his degree is in numerical analysis or
So Andy, just to recap, Armel Le Cléac'h on Banque Populaire is second in this 7th edition of the Vendée Globe. He finished in a time of 78 days, 5 hours and 33 minutes. That's a mere 3 hours, 17 minutes and 12 seconds behind François Gabart, the winner, who earlier became the youngest winner of the Vendée Globe in history at the age of 29, beating the previous record of Alain Gauthier, who was 30 in 1990, in the 1992-93 edition, and Francois will be 30 in March actually. So this is a nice early birthday present. But for Armel, it's the second time he's been second, and he said there that it felt like a victory, and you can see why when you have that kind of reception. It's not you don't feel like a loser when there's 150,000 people out to welcome you back.
You certainly don't feel like you've done anything wrong or particularly lost. But it's been so close, and really I think he seems to be saying it's down to pretty much that one decision off Brazil. And after that, he didn't really have any big options to get back at Francois.
He did the best he could, actually, didn't he? Because he made that 150 miles, or he made about 150 miles of the 250 he was behind in the doldrums, and really that went probably even better than he could have hoped for, the doldrums, and there certainly wasn't another opportunity to attack after that.
I mean, he was saying that you missed the fact that he was saying they had problems with 2 sails as far as I could pick up, but one Jenica and one Genoa, but not sure. Presumably he's made a repair to the Genoa.
And we know that he had to go up the mast around, well, close to Cape Horn. So that there were problems. He did have some problems, and in the end, when you're talking about only 3 hours difference, then things like that and weather strategies not playing out as you hoped for are enough to make the difference.
Yeah, these weather strategies can be down to the choices. It can also be down to the level of information and how it's analysed at that time.
And that's the thing that we forget now. We talk about the change in the race from 20 years ago, but these skippers are skilled in multiple fields, from being technicians to being analysts, number crunchers, and the team do the number crunching before the race, but during the race, when they're working out what the optimum sailing conditions for the boat are and optimum sail choices for different weather conditions, then that comes down to the skippers, and especially when they start getting bits of damage or things change, they have to work out their own parameters. So Francois was talking about there are very few occasions where you have you mix a kind of art and technical skill, art and science, and they have to be. I think Jean-Yves Bernot, who is the routing guru and the weather guru at Port de Forêt, and gives them all a briefing there and before the race, was saying that they have to be skilled in about 20 different fields now, he felt, to be the best.
No, completely, and the thing is, or part of the skill in the meteo and the weather choices is when I mean, obviously the routing itself is driven by the software, but it's when you can go one stage better than the routing, or feel something is not quite right, and that's when you make the decision based on an extra piece of information, whether that's real-time satellite scans or whatever, or just the evolution of the models and being able to analyze. Quite often you'll have differences between the different weather models, and being able to know instinctively which model is actually right, and then running with that and preparing your strategy accordingly, particularly as systems evolve and the timings of the systems. That's really where these big differences, or small differences, suddenly become, or small differences become big differences, and that is really the science of ocean racing, whether it's in the Volvo or whether it's in this. And again, just to emphasize once more, of course, there's no external help, but there's no routing. It's entirely down to the skipper. They have access only to weather information which is publicly available, and by that means that it can be paid for, it can be packaged by an external agency, but it must be openly available. So that's to say someone else can pay their money and have the same package.
And they, you know, through the race, all the skippers have talked about being in areas where the weather files don't agree. And Armel was talking about having to look very carefully at satellite images. And I think that's probably the separation of where the skippers who are not meteorologists, but some of them probably not far off. If you talk to Jean-Yves Bonneau, some of them, he's very impressed by the skill of some of these sailors. And again, it's the layer of ability that the school of solo sailing in France adds that isn't there, perhaps, well, it isn't there in other countries around the world.
No, but I'm going to say there's no routing allowed, but you'll find that, you know, Vincent Rieu, for example, is a skilled router in his own right, and there's several of the other skippers will work as routers in different races, and that's the level of ability they have in terms of the meteo and the choices.
So here we see Armel working his way through the crowds. I think he's holding Edgar there, he's holding his son Edgar.
I think it's a little bit less intense for him than it was for Francois, and he's probably just enjoying the moment, just recognizing some faces and enjoying the questions and the comments and the congratulations as he goes past. There he is with Bruno Retailleau, the president of the Vendée, in the mix there.
Talking to some experienced hands on the pontoon. They were saying that the scrum actually is to feel the press is not like it was 10 years ago, even 4 years ago. They've organised it a little bit to give some breathing space to the skippers now.
Otherwise, it'd still be there. There we go, and the good of the Vendée organisation. You have to bear in mind, of course, this is a race which is owned by the region and promotes the region, and a great deal of pride attached to the Vendée Globe at moments like this.
It's their moment in the sunshine in France, definitely, and the eyes of the nation are on the Vendée at the moment.
That's right.
They are for the start, and then it goes a little bit quiet. If you watch French television, you get coverage of the race, but it's really focused now. Everyone around the country will be seeing these scenes. They'll be seeing two new heroes emerge today, and I think that's how we can look at it. It's been such an intense race that and Armel's played his part in it. Yes, he's second, and there could be only one winner, but
he looks happier, if anything. He does. He's absolutely loving it. And I suppose to a certain extent, you know, that's perhaps the fact he's relaxed and he's with his kids, and
he's holding hands with. Look, Louise is looking for Daddy's hand, and I think that's his wife Aurélie, right, just in front.
Daddy, who are the Rolling Stones? What happened to
Pleased to meet you.
What happened to One Direction? So 3 hours, 17 minutes, 12 seconds, the difference between first and second. An eye blink in terms of the Vendée Globe. Never been closer. And you wonder if it ever will. You said earlier on, Matt, that all these Vendée Globes have got a different characteristic, and looking back at the previous edition, there was 4 or 5 boats which led at different stages. and each of them likely are possible winners. You had Sébastien Josse, we had Loic Perron, we had Jean-Pierre Deck, we had Mike Golding, we had of course Michel Desjoyeux and
well, Quito de Pavon as well. I mean,
Quito de Pavon. You know, they all led at different stages in that edition, and you would probably say that there was more boats that you would consider possible winners. So here we go. Here comes Armel meeting the Vendée public for the official welcome back and official interview. And this is one of the wonderful things about the return, is that the public are get immediate words from Armel. We're joined by Sabina, who's going to give us some translation as Armel takes the stage and the rolling stills
deuxième du
fade.
Vendée Globe, la 7e édition. Vous pouvez l'applaudir encore. Et on est content qu'il soit là aussi ce soir.
Just welcoming Armel on the stage and saying how happy they all are to see him here this evening.
Ah ça met du baume au cœur.
That warms your heart.
On s'habitue pas à ça, non, c'est sûr.
No, you don't get used to
C'est
this.
incroyable,
It's just
J'avais
incredible.
vraiment à cœur cet après-midi d'arriver avant que dans les temps du chenal pour pas se faire avoir par la marée.
I was just so
Donc, j'ai
happy to
remis,
get up here
le turbo.
before the tide turned
J'ai pas
and
pu
see all
vraiment
of these
souffler,
people.
comme j'aurais pu en me disant bah voilà, maintenant je vais profiter de ces
I knew I
dernières
couldn't
heures,
finish like I thought I was going to, but
cravacher pour arriver,
anyway, I'm going to
avec
fight
le
to the
public,
end,
je savais
and
qu'il était très présent,
I knew all the public would be
pour
here
fêter l'arrivée de François,
and
bien
waiting.
sûr,
So,
que je félicite. Et puis,
so thank you.
et pour mon arrivée, voilà, c'était super, la remontée du chenal,
That
incroyable.
trip
et,
up the canal was just
et
brilliant.
voilà, c'est assez fou.
Il y
It's
a
mad.
4 ans, quand tu étais arrivé, tu avais un petit peu d'appréhension avant cette arrivée-là. Là, tu t'avais
Just
un
asking
peu
if he was
enlevé
a
la
bit worried
pression,
before the
ou elle est
start.
revenue finalement petit à petit, cette appréhension?
And coming up the canal.
Oh, bah, c'est sûr que c'est pas les mêmes émotions qu'il y a 4 ans. Il y a 4 ans, j'étais...
It's not quite the same emotions as 4 years ago.
J'étais amaigri. Donc
4
j'étais
years
vraiment
ago,
très content d'arriver, d'en finir.
Ah.
C'était dur à la fin.
I had really struggled
Là,
at
la
the
fin
end.
était,
I'd lost a
on va
lot of
dire,
weight. I just wanted to get there.
correct. On a eu des conditions difficiles la
We
dernière
had
nuit, mais ça va, c'était pas la grosse tempête.
Conditions last
Et puis
night,
voilà, j'étais en forme, j'avais encore assez à manger, j'avais pris
and I
pas perdu de
still had
kilos,
enough
c'était
food left. So
Voilà,
last
c'est bon.
night,
J'ai
if you
pris
like,
pour
the last
90
night was
jours,
slightly
donc,
easier than
il y
it
a
was
la
4
marge.
years ago.
Et voilà, donc je suis plutôt à faire le tour un peu de ce qui s'est passé pendant ces 78 jours, à
Just
faire
slightly
le bilan
overwhelmed
et
of the
voilà,
whole
me dire
time,
que,
you know,
c'était une belle
78
course avec
days.
François notamment, on s'est
And
bien
that tough
bagarré.
race there, which we
Comment tu fait ton
fought
bilan là, dans
against
les
François.
dernières heures? Il y a une image qui revient plus que d'autres ou pas?
Ah bah
The things I retain over
il
the
y a plein
last
d'images, hein. On a eu des moments
days,
incroyables, on s'est croisés plusieurs fois
the
dans les
moments
Vertus
that we
notamment, on s'est filmé,
crossed paths and we filmed
quelques
each other.
emails, on s'est
Those
parlé à
are
la VHF,
pretty memorable.
et c'était
memorable. And
incroyable.
then
Et puis,
the exchanges we had
bien
over
sûr,
the
j'ai pensé
VHF.
aussi à cette journée un peu difficile dans le large du Brésil où j'ai su
Those
que là,
days off
il se
Brazil
passait
were
un
quite
truc,
hard, and I knew
un
something was
truc dur au niveau
happening
du
there.
classement et la stratégie.
And I knew
et-
on the strategy,
et,
on the
ça
strategy
avait été
and on the
24 heures
rankings, it's
difficiles
going to be
à bord, à
difficult.
gérer, à tenir et
And to
puis
hold
voilà.
on.
Puis après il y a eu plein de moments sympas.
Then there have been loads of
cette
wonderful
nuit, j'ai
moments
croisé
as
un
well.
trimaran
Last
Oman
night
là,
I
qui
came
revenait
across a trimaran
de Lisbonne, il est passé à 1 mille devant
on-
moi
he
dans
just
le golfe
crossed
de Gascogne. Et donc
a
j'ai
mile
parlé
ahead
à
of
la
me,
VHF,
just
il y avait
there in the
Sylvie
Bay of
Gavillier,
Biscay.
il y avait Damien Foxhol à bord.
And
Et,
Damon Fox was on
c'était
board.
marrant de
It was
discuter
quite
comme
funny
ça
to say
en
hi
pleine
and
nuit,
in the middle of the
plein milieu du
night,
golfe de Gascogne après 78 jours.
right there in the Bay of
Quand
Biscay.
tu dis que ça a été difficile ce moment où tu as senti finalement que la course elle pouvait t'échapper, quand tu dis que c'était difficile, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a un moment, tu as mis quelques heures avant de te remobiliser, un petit moment de moins bien?
Bah, on essaie toujours de faire marcher le bateau à 100%, mais c'est vrai
Just
que là, je me suis
talking
dit,
about
je savais que
how you
ça se
try and
passait pas
push the
bien
boat
au niveau du
100%.
vent, au niveau de la météo,
And
par rapport
then
à ce que
you've got
j'étais
little
prévu, et ce que je
frustrations
pensais
when
qu'il y aurait
maybe
sur l'eau.
the conditions change, they're not
Voilà,
quite what
donc
you
il faut faire
expect,
avec,
so you just got to make the most of
faut
what you
faire
got
avancer le bateau, essayer
and just
de
keep
trouver
the boat
le
going
meilleur
and-
moyen pour aller au bon endroit.
and try to
Et voilà, je savais que
make the right choices
l'addition,
of
elle
which
allait
places
être-
to
elle
position
était
yourself
difficile,
in.
et puis elle était encore
That's
plus
a hard
difficile parce
thing.
qu'après
Then
ça partait par devant.
It was difficult because
Voilà,
it
mais
was
c'est
stretching
le
out
jeu,
ahead,
c'est le
and
jeu de
that's
la
part of the
météo, c'est le
game.
jeu de
It's
la
always
course au
the
large, hein,
weather, and that's what offshore racing is.
si on n'aime pas ça, on ferait
If
pas
you
ce
don't
qu'on
like it, well then we
fait,
wouldn't be
donc,
doing what we're doing.
voilà, c'était vraiment super pendant
But it
78
was pretty
jours. Il y a eu des
wonderful
petites
for
options, il y a
most
eu
of the
des
race.
quoi faire pendant
Always lots
pendant
of
ce
things to
parcours.
do.
En tout cas, tu mets 10 jours de moins qu'il y a 4 ans Et rien que pour ça, déjà, t'as pas.
Janice is saying that you've knocked 10 days off the last edition. That's pretty incredible.
10 jours de moins, enfin, c'est incroyable.
That's incredible.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe là en toi depuis quelques heures? C'est quoi tes sentiments? C'est bonheur, c'est soulagement d'arriver, c'est en même temps frustration?
Just asking him what his feelings are upon arrival.
Il y a plein de choses. Cet après-midi, c'était un peu la déception.
This afternoon, I was obviously a bit disappointed.
Parce que
Realization setting in.
Tout ce travail fait depuis
All this work that I've
4 ans
done
pour revenir au départ.
in the last 4 years to get to the start.
Mon objectif au départ, c'était vraiment de
really,
gagner.
my objective was to win at the start.
Et d'être pas si loin que ça, au final, c'est
rageant. Be patient right to the end. But then, when I finished and you start seeing all the boats coming in and everyone out there cheering, it's just so brilliant, and it's a wonderful moment. And I've done that race, so I'm pleased with what I've done.
Merci. Et puis voilà, François était meilleur. C'est le jeu.
And then François was better, and that's the game. It's like a match of tennis.
Il a fait le break dans le 5e.
And he got the break in the 5th set. I never managed to break back.
Il a gagné, il a fait
and
une
he
super
wins.
course.
And he did a great race.
Très bien.
So finishing second's not bad.
Pour moi, pour mon équipe,
I'm very pleased with myself and my team.
Quasiment nickel à l'arrivée. On n'a pas eu beaucoup de soucis techniques.
Quelques bricoles, mais very few technical issues really. A few little things, but nothing major.
Ça se passe bien. On a des petites bricoles, mais on n'a pas de gros problèmes.
No major problems to sort out. So I really have to say thank you to my team and Shore Crew because they really worked hard. Everything worked well. And thank you to Banque Populaire who's really been supporting for 2 years on projects now for 2 years.
Il y a un petit problème de moteur qui a été obligé de réparer. Est-ce que toi, tu as eu un moment un peu chaud comme ça aussi? Un problème technique qui a failli te jouer des tours?
Just asking Armel if you had any issues like the engine problems that François had. In the Southern Ocean, I had a foresail that I had a problem with.
Il a fallu monter dans le mât.
So I had to go up the mast, which I went up twice. Thankfully, conditions allowed for it, so I could do it well and quickly.
Il y avait un créneau pour monter qui était assez court,
entre deux dépressions. Gap in the weather which allowed me to do it, so I was able to do it quickly.
Une première fois, ça n'a pas fait. Je suis remonté.
First time I went up didn't work, and then the second time I went up, took my tools with me and managed to unblock the sail.
Et voilà, donc il fallait pas que cette voile reste bloquée parce que sinon ça
you can't have a sail blocked up there because it could be quite dangerous. I know that Jean-Pierre had that problem, and that can penalise you in the end on speed.
Des fois, on tape des choses sur l'eau.
Or you knock things in the sea sometimes.
On a des bruits un peu bizarres à bord du bateau des fois.
You hear funny noises, so
voilà, c'est comme ça et il faut faire avec.
It's just part of the game, and you just have to do it.
À l'écoute de ce qui se passe, d'être vraiment encore avec le bateau et pour pas qu'il faiblisse, pour aller jusqu'au bout et être toujours à 100%.
Watch your boat and make sure it doesn't weaken and push it as hard as it can right to the end and not give up.
Passage entre deux classements à chaque fois, vous étiez tellement près l'un de l'autre, on se dit qu'il va y avoir un stress à se dire ça si j'ai perdu quelques minutes, ça va être
how close it was with François at times in the rankings.
C'est un moment stressant ou pas ce passage entre deux classements?
And how stressful it must have been for you.
C'est pas que c'est stressant, mais
I wouldn't say it was really stressful, but you do ask yourself, you know, every time you look at the rankings, am I going slower? You know, even if it's a tenth of a knot, you know, you think, no, not too serious. But if it's 1 or 2 knots, you think, oh, what am I doing?
Voilà, et c'est vrai que c'était un peu chacun son tour.
So we each had that, but
c'est ça aussi qui a fait qu'on n'a pas vraiment eu de moment de répit.
That's why we didn't really get much rest, I think.
Ces mers du Sud où c'était intense.
Especially in the Southern Ocean where it was so intense.
On n'a jamais été vraiment dans des conditions où
we never had conditions where we could just relax a bit. It just one thing after another. So these 78 days have gone by really quickly. I'm saying that to myself, my God, I'm here 4 years ago. I felt that how long the race was. I really did feel it was long at the end. That trip up the Atlantic return trip was long, and now it's just gone much faster.
Maintenant non, parce que voilà, je suis arrivé et que je suis content d'être arrivé et puis après c'est sûr qu'il y a des moments où c'est dur sur l'eau, on a envie de pas être là, d'être ailleurs, d'être à la maison avec la famille, les enfants.
Tough moments on the sea, of course, you want to be at home and have time with your family and do something else at home. But when you're out there, it's great, and you've got to, you know, I've had so many people helping me and following me, and family and friends.
Ça t'a aidé aussi à tenir, j'imagine.
And my friends and family really did help me get through.
j'ai plein d'amis de la famille qui m'ont fait une vidéo par jour. Donc,
I'd get a daily video from them.
un peu comme un calendrier de l'Avent, j'ouvrais une vidéo tous les jours.
So it's great. I had a little video to open every day. So that was great. I'm going to get there.
Rigolo, et c'était marrant, donc c'était un peu comme quand on est petit, quand on va ouvrir sa petite case le matin.
It's a bit like when you're little and you go and open your
et je rigolais bien tout seul
a
sur mon
little
bateau.
present every day. So I quite enjoyed it every single day. I had a little thing to open.
Le plus évidemment là, sur la fin, les derniers jours de course, sur le bonhomme ou sur le bateau?
On va dire un peu les deux. Le bateau, comme je disais, il a été vraiment bien préparé. On a eu d'autres soucis techniques.
Armel was talking about how his boat was really well prepared.
Avec l'équipe pour être
they spent a year with his short team
maximum de choses
to really fine-tune everything. And I realise now that was really key.
On a un peu accéléré dans le golfe de Gascogne, il y avait de la mer.
I mean, there were times in the Bay of Biscay where we were doing 20 knots. I was thinking, there's the exhaustion's there, and the boat is obviously weakened a bit, but we're going to get there. And then
il y a toujours l'euphorie d'arrivée.
You get that moment, and then personally for me, I'm tired, but I could go back out on the water, but you have the euphoria that just keeps you going. You're coming in, and I'm sure in a few hours that will hit me, and over the next coming days.
Je remercie les amis de la communication.
So just thanking all the press for keeping me going.
C'est là où ça va être un peu à la limite le plus dur quasiment après le Vendée Globe.
Alors on a dit que l'Atlantique, la remontée était très difficile. On a dit qu'avant les mers du Sud, finalement, vous avez une météo un peu plus clémente.
Just saying that the trip up the Atlantic was really difficult. Can you give us some ideas of when you had the worst weather? What were your impressions on board during these difficult times?
Ça a été compliqué en termes de météo où on se fait peur, quoi.
Il y a des moments on sait pas qu'on se fait peur, mais on stresse parce que
there's not moments you're really scared, but you get stressed because the condition, the water state, the state of the water is, the rough seas is difficult, especially after Cape Horn. It was a week that was hard and quite rough seas.
Mais malheureusement, la mer n'était pas dans le bon sens, donc ça tapait beaucoup.
It was against, just a cross sea.
On se tient à bord.
So sort of crashing into the waves.
Ça va.
And you think, after each wave, you think, gosh, what's going to happen is
c'est peut-être temps de réduire.
Return of the Jackal.
Ou de mollir un peu.
Yes.
Voilà, il faut continuer, il faut cravacher parce que ça part par devant et voilà.
But then he's saying that you just had to hold on because they were running away ahead. So.
Mais voilà, après ça se calme et puis on passe à autre chose
and then things calm down and then you've got other pressures. But
en bonne forme, donc
I think that those days after the Cape Horn where the sea was rough is probably the ones that he recalls the most.
Au cinéma, donc
faut que tu ailles voir le film maintenant.
Je vais voir le film, voilà. Donc c'était le 12 décembre, donc j'ai lu ça à bord effectivement.
Qu'est-ce que tu as lu d'autre? Tu as lu un roman de Coben, c'est ça?
Ouais, voilà.
Talking about the video he made, isn't it?
Yes, and then a book he was reading.
Was he reading The Hobbit?
That's it, yes, The Hobbit.
Exactement, ouais, exactement. Je suis fan des Rolling Stones.
And then he obviously likes the Rolling Stones.
Pourquoi ça sent pas très bon?
Je sais pas, mais pendant la course, t'as pas arrêté de dire que tu voulais une douche.
Sweaty, I think, under there.
Wouldn't you be?
Yes.
Les vents sont plutôt bons là.
C'est parce que c'est bien fermé.
Ouais.
Oui, bien sûr, une bonne douche, un bon repas, et puis surtout avec mes enfants, ma femme, voilà, parce que bon, l'arrivée, on n'a pas vraiment le temps de se poser.
Wife and child.
Et il y a beaucoup de sollicitations, tous les gens qui sont venus, voilà,
faut profiter,
c'est sûr, mais
I think some interviews set up for afterwards. So.
Armel, deuxième du Vendée Globe, bravo Armel, merci beaucoup.
So second place for Armel.
Well done, Armel Le Cléac'h, then second in his second consecutive Vendée Globe. Thank you, Sabina.
Armel, en Vendée, au Sables d'Olonne, on te connaît bien.
A welcome from Bruno Retailleau, the president of the Vendée.
Et que on pense que peut-être que tu as un tout petit gramme de déception au fond de toi que tu nous caches. Alors, j'ai un message à te dire de toute la foule qui est ici, qui est merveilleuse. Ils sont venus nombreux ce soir. Eux, ils n'ont pas de micro. Alors, je vais essayer d'exprimer leurs sentiments auprès de toi. 3 heures, c'est 3 toutes petites heures. 3 heures sur 3 mois de course.
So
3 heures
Bruno's
sur 24 000
wishing to send over a message on behalf of the public saying, just 3
hours and 3 months is nothing.
Que cette 7e édition
It's
sera
just
été
an
une très
instant.
grande édition sportive.
What a wonderful
Parce qu'on retiendra
sports
2
event
choses.
this has
D'abord,
been.
tu as gagné avec François sur Phileas Fogg, moins de 80 jours. Et surtout,
So you
jamais le
join
Vendée Globe aurait été ce qu'il a
Phileas
été
Fogg
pour
and
cette 7e
François
édition
Gabart and getting around
s'il
the
n'y avait
world
pas eu
in
ce
under 80
morceau
days.
d'anthologie sportif que vous nous avez donné, que tu nous as donné, toi, Armel, avec François, le mano à mano dans les mers du Sud, en remonter jusqu'ici, 3 heures seulement. C'est 3 heures fabuleuses. C'est magnifique ce que tu as fait. Et ils vont te le dire maintenant, dès maintenant et immédiatement.
Armel on his achievement, getting around the world in under 80 days.
So very warm congratulations, and just the whole Armel's performance put into perspective by the president of the Vendée, just saying that in the context of a 3-month race, then 3 hours is just absolutely nothing. Very popular with the crowd is Armel, as he was on departure, he is on return. Just running the highlights of Armel Le Cléac'h's arrival. I think we are just waiting for the press conference, which will be streamed live. Join us again in a few minutes.